observation. Parasite. I want to talk about that word in a second, but I have to touch on something else first. Luigi Mangione. There are many things people want to be saying about him right now, but I'm not into any of that. I've got on all kinds of, or at least a few different kinds of ideas on what's going on with him, but I'm not saying it because I haven't been subpoenaed, and nobody's ever wanted my help before. So if they want it, I guess they can come find me. It'll probably play out in the end anyway. Parasite. You take this Luigi Mangione, and you've got people that are really mad about this. They're mad that actually the one thing that neither political party could do on its own, it took both of them to be nervous, and one person to do something to make both sides nervous, to bring the country together. I'm sure if you were to vote for support of Luigi Mangione, he'd get a lot more support than that poor guy. I'm pretty sure of it. But we're going to talk about this observation, and it's related to parasite. And the thing is, some of these people, they'll be out there mad, and they always like to say, I see that in the Senate hearings in Congress that people do, there'll always be the guy that's trying to attack someone that's obviously very professional and intelligent, and they'll say, what, you think you're smarter than everybody else? And the guy can't just say, yeah, of course, because then they'll make something out of that, but it's obvious. You take Luigi Mangione. If you were to ask me if he's smarter than everyone else, well, I'd say you just look at his accomplishments, scholarly and otherwise. I mean, he had a master's degree. He was a young man. He was obviously very fit and active, athletic, up until some point, I guess, when he must have gotten screwed up somehow, and whatever leads to him doing what he did, it seems to me something probably pushed him over the edge. He'd had enough. Which, if he hadn't reached that point, and if he hadn't had time to actually let it cool off, maybe it would never cool off. Maybe he gave it that time, and he just said, I got to do something. So that's probably some way it happened. But if you're to ask if he's smarter than everybody else, well, most people. That's like Victoria's dad. The stepdad he wants, when she was a little girl, about 8-10 years old, he's always calling people morons driving by. And she had said to him once, Grandpa, is everyone a moron? And he went, huh? Yeah, most people. So if you got that coming from an old Republican that most people are morons, there's a pretty good guess that Luigi Mangione is smarter than most people. And, well, it just helps that he's a handsome man. You can't be a big unattractive man that's loved only by those that love you, driving through the front of a car lot window and saying, you know, he doesn't get as much support. So I guess it's skewed a little bit. You know, it's just biological, I suppose. Parasite. The thing is, you really can't even say he wanted to get caught or he didn't want to get caught, because both those things are opposite. They take away all the gray area in between between where you consider the options and the possibilities. And in a system like ours, where you kill somebody, you get 5 years in prison. If you want that guy dead that bad, it's just paying the price. It's like buying a car that's broke down by the time you've paid it off in 5 years. Only it's the opposite. You can be in prison, getting in shape, ready for the world. Take some classes, maybe get some operations done, make you bigger and stronger than ever before. You could be Riddick. So I suppose the way I see it, he had no desire to be caught, but he had taken it in consideration, and he said, "Oh, if I can get away with it, why wouldn't I?" Unless he had a lot to say that he wouldn't get his words out unless he did. But that doesn't make sense, because you look at that Q guy that nobody knew who he was. Everybody listened to him without knowing who he is. So he could have done that and then moved along his jolly way and put out a message every once in a while with his notions and thoughts on how things should be. Maybe some answers and something more than a concept. Maybe a solution. And just answer Luigi at the end, and people would pay attention. So he doesn't have to get caught to get his word out. There's no telling how he got caught. I mean, why, if he meant to, or if he didn't, anything like that. Parasite. Here's the part I wanted to explain. He's an intelligent man. I'm sure he chooses his words wisely. I'm guessing he isn't very garrulous, because he only wrote 3 pages. They never mention whether it was front and back, or if it was just on the front. It was handwritten. He would have to put 1, 2, 3, and then the next page 3, turn it over 4, next page 5, next page turn it over 6, and then halfway down it says Luigi, and it's done. But there in his message at the end there, he said, these parasites had it coming. He said it in the past tense already, like he was confident. See, that's something you need in a leader, not somebody that's just yelling and telling everybody that everybody's against them, and because they don't think they can win, they just want to stave it off as long as possible. He was confident. He knew he got the guy. He must have visualized it ahead of time, like sitting in the locker room before the football game and the coach is telling you, visualize what you're going to do, and you will do it. And then you say a prayer. He used the word parasite. And people think, oh, like a tick or something like that. They think it's just a common phrase. But you have to go back to the Greek origins of it. See, up here on the bookshelf behind me, I've got the Odyssey by Homer, and I've got the Iliad also. I got the Odyssey first, so I had read it, and it's about Odysseus's trip back from the Trojan Wars, where Brad Pitt was Achilles, and with all these guys and the things that happened along the way. And all the while he's out, it took him like 10 years to get home from there. And he was a man of wealth back home who left a man behind, a wife, I should say. And all the men showed up, and they're like, he's dead, he's not coming back, because none of these people were coming back. He's like one of the only ones, if not the only one, to make it back 10 years later. But so they move in, and that was the way of the time. The men come in and they court the wife, and if she marries him, all the other guys got to leave, and he's the leader of the household, I guess, and he gets all the cash and the say. But they're moved in, all these guys, and they're saying, you got to marry me, and I don't know what goes on after the fire goes out. But they're just eating and partying and drinking on his money, on her inheritance, and they won't leave. They need her to make a decision on who she's going to marry because her husband Odysseus is dead and he's not coming back and she needs a husband. She staved it off as long as possible. And at one point in the book, it said that these men were parasites. And that's where the first I know of it being used was, and you look it up, parasites. Oh, it's not a blood sucking thing, more of a bank sucking critter. But it means one who eats at someone else's table. Para meaning outside of, not theirs. Site, place, another site. And it translated to one who eats at someone else's table. Parasite. So, a thinking man who's driven and confident, you'd think he would use a word for a reason. Why did he say parasite? Why did he describe that CEO as a parasite? Because down here, where 1 in 3, this is something I have anecdotally from someone I know, 1 in 3 claims gets pushed back. And they know that the person is going to try again, but sometimes they don't. And the longer they wait to try again, the longer they wait to succeed. Interest builds money in the banks of the healthcare organizations. And when everybody was going broke during COVID, somehow through those years, they always made big benefits. They made a lot of money. So you've got people starving. They can't pay their medical bills. You got people down there that can't even feed their families because they can't work. And there's supposed to be something backing it up, right? But there's not for everyone. Not everyone can afford that little extra care. Aflac came around. I decided I didn't want it. I needed the money in my pocket more right now than a bet on something that even if I win, I lose. A Pyrrhic victory. You finally get that fucking paralyzing incident, and now they don't want to pay you for it. And so basically, all you're doing all these years, it sounds like, is you're paying and paying and paying and paying, and the big payout in the end is just paying. It amounts to you paid that much money for somebody to come over and tell you, no, you get nothing. That's a good use of money. You'd think if that was government run, they might do a better job of it, but I don't know anymore in the coming days. So, wow. How much would you argue with me that Luigi Mangione didn't or did look at this CEO? I'm not saying his name, I know it. I have personal information about it after the fact. How much do you or do you not want to believe that Luigi Mangione saw that CEO as someone eating at someone else's table, just making a mess of the whole thing? Parasites. It's an observation.